Hello, it's Lexi at Cozy Tea Cafe over on Bookstagram, and today I'm going to be summarizing The Wind Weaver by Julie Johnson, Book 1 in the Reign of Remnants series. Book 2, The Sea Spinner, comes out on April 28th. And if you're not familiar with these videos, just a reminder that they will be full of spoilers. I'll be going over in-depth plot points from the beginning to the end of the book. So if you have not read the book and you don't want spoilers, don't continue watching. Just to start off here, we have our main character, Rhea Fleetwood, a young fae halfling who is captured by soldiers and told she's being brought to the Avian Strait for execution. She's brought to Commander Scythe, who scolds the warriors for bringing her in such rough shape, and they tell him about an odd raised marking on her skin, almost like a tattoo. Scythe learns the mark is on her chest beneath her dress, and he again accuses the men of handling her too roughly, but they claim that they only saw this mark when they put their noose around her neck. One of the soldiers, named Burroughs, explains that another soldier was burned when he touched the marking, and he offers to show Scythe, but Scythe commands Burroughs not to touch her. Scythe lowers her dress just enough to see the mark, then loosens the noose and kills Burroughs and the rest of the soldiers. Scythe rides off with Rhea, and she develops a terrible fever during the journey that makes her delirious. She has brief memories of Scythe helping her through her fever, but she wakes up semi-recovered. They continue traveling, and now that she has her strength back, they argue and tensions are high. They're traveling north towards the Cimmerian Mountains, and Rhea assumes they'll stop there since there's only one narrow and dangerous passage through, called the Avian Strait, that leads to the Northlands. Not much is known about the Northlands other than their brutal king Sorin, but they pass over a narrow, secret gulch to cross through the mountains, and Scythe explains that it's an old path that not many know about, and at this point she learns that he's from the Northlands and he was just pretending to be a Midland commander. As they cross, soldiers reach them and start shooting arrows. Rhea slips on the bridge and feels herself fall, then a gust of wind comes by and she catches her footing, leaving Scythe shocked. Rhea makes her way to the other side, and Scythe is shot in the shoulder on his way over. Rhea goes back to help him, and when they both reach the end, Scythe cuts the bridge and the soldiers fall to their death. Rhea scolds Scythe for killing the warriors, and he tells her that they would have hunted them into the mountains if he didn't kill them first. Scythe says that he's not her enemy, and begrudgingly asks her to help remove the arrow from his shoulder. Rhea's mortal father figure named Eli was a healer, and she learned everything she knows from him, but it's alluded to that he recently died. Scythe and Rhea run into Scythe's friend Jack, who asks if Rhea is her, the answer to all of their prayers, which leaves her very confused. She tries to explain that she's ordinary, and Scythe says that she has a remnant mark. Jack is shocked that she seems ignorant of this mark and wonders if someone sheltered this information to protect her. Rhea tries to lie about her backstory, and Scythe calls her bluff, but he doesn't push the subject any farther. They come across a camp and see a man named Farley, who calls Scythe Pen and greets him like they're old friends. Suddenly, they feel the ground shake, and then 24 giant centipedes burst from the ground and attack. Rhea grabs a bow to fight the creatures, and when she sees Farley is badly injured, she fights beside him until she runs out of arrows. He tells her to run to a nearby passageway so she doesn't die with the rest of them, and she initially hesitates, but eventually goes. Rhea is intercepted by another centipede shooting out of the ground, bigger than all of the rest, but she notices it's blind and tries to back away silently. She trips and it lunges for her, but Scythe arrives and kills it. Back at camp, everyone survived the attack, but Scythe is mad at Rhea for disobeying his orders to stay by the fire. They pack up, and Farley starts calling her Ace for her sharpshooting skills. Farley needs to see a healer in Ventaire, which is the opposite direction of the Apex portal they're traveling to, but Scythe doesn't want to leave his wounded men alone, so he plans to accompany them. Rhea doesn't recognize the names of any of the towns because all of the Fae records, including maps of the Northlands, were burned by the Mortal Kings after the Mortal Uprising called the Cull. Farley asks Rhea for her name now that they're friends and have battled together, but she tells him that she's a prisoner, not a friend. He laughs and asks why she would think that, then assures her that she's safe with them and says Scythe/Pen is usually much nicer and more fun. They arrive in Ventaire, and the innkeeper calls Scythe Prince Pendifier, Pen for short, and the local healer was called away, so Rhea sets Farley's bone herself in the healer's workshop with the help of Pen, Jack, Mabon, and Uther. When they're done, Rhea goes to bed and sees that she's sharing a room with Pen. He finally takes off his helm after over a week together, and she sees that he's actually a halfling like she is. At her confusion, he explains that nearly everyone in the Northlands is at least part Fae, including his men, but they have glamours in place to hide their ears. Rhea says she doesn't have magic, and there hasn't been any magic in Anwen since the call, but he asks what happened when the soldier tried to touch her mark, and again when the wind saved her from falling to her death on the bridge. Pen says her birthmark is a remnant mark, a sign of elemental power, and she's a wind weaver, the master of air. Jack bursts into the room and announces that Reavers have arrived, and they rush to leave. Farley stays behind and waits for the healer, but Pen assures Rhea he'll be safe because he wasn't seen with their company the night before. They make camp, and Jack explains that Reavers hate the Fae, and since Deved is their closest neighbor, Reavers usually go after them. Since Pen is the only heir to Deved, the Reavers would love to get a hold of him to use as a bargaining piece to take control of the land. Jack points out that Rhea is worried for him, and she gets embarrassed and tries to deny this by saying she's better off if he is dead. Then she immediately feels bad, but Pen is already behind her and hears everything. They reach a camp and see that all of their scouts are dead, then Reavers rush out and attack. Pen tells Rhea to ride back to their last camp, and for a second she thinks he might kiss her, then she rides off. A second group of Reavers block the path from behind, so Rhea is forced down a different path as the wind picks up. She stops when she reaches a large fire, and she's choking on the thick smoke. Wind explodes out of her and creates a barrier between her and the smoke so she can breathe. When she turns around the other way, she sees a Fae man and then passes out. Rhea wakes up at the Fae man's house, and he assures her that he didn't touch her, but he carried her back after she passed out from draining her powers, and he promises not to harm her. He takes off his shirt and reveals a remnant mark and says he's the master of water, and reveals they're at the Akron hold. He scolds her for using her power without knowing how to wield it, and says that she needs a guardian more suitable than Pendifier. He can tell that she has no idea what's going on, so he explains that she's a wind weaver controlling air, and there are only 4 remnants at any given time, 1 for each of the elements. He tells her of an old prophecy that speaks of a Fae tetrad of remnants bound together to restore the balance of power. Anwen is sick, and the land has been dying since mortals killed the Fae royal family during the call. The Northlands are safe for now, but most of the southern land is poisoned, except for traces here and there, and Rhea recalls the magical pocket she felt back home in Sea Haven. He says he hasn't met a wind weaver in over 70 years, and reveals he's about 2 centuries old, and remnants have long lives and quick healing abilities. He's given up on the prophecy because he's never found a trace of the Earth Remnant in over 200 years of searching. Pen shows up, and Rhea finds out she's in Helios within the kingdom of Lear, and the man she's been talking to is King Soren, the supposedly cruel king everyone in the south is scared of. It's clear that Pen and Soren don't like each other, and as they argue, Rhea finds out that Pen is the fire remnant, and Soren blames Pen for the death of Enid, a previous air remnant. Soren learns that the mortal king Ephesian's men saw Rhea on the bridge and tells Pen to use the portal instead of riding to Deved to keep Rhea safe. Pen is stubborn and insists on riding, and they stop for the night at a royal residence in Cold Cross. Pen confronts Rhea on wearing Soren's colors and says that she appeared to get along with Soren much better than she has with him, and he's angry that he had to hear her name from Soren instead of from her directly because up until this point, she hasn't revealed her real name. Rhea says that she didn't go willingly and explains that she burned out and Soren helped her. Rhea steps away from Pen, and he's hurt that she might be scared of him, and explains that he has a complicated relationship with Soren and was worried for her, then he leaves. The next morning, Rhea finds a book on Fae history and the Tetrad prophecy inside her bag from Soren, but she hides it from Pen so he doesn't take it from her. They begin traveling, and Rhea and Pen nearly kiss again when they argue, and Pen says that he would give anything not to care about her. She asks about Enid, and he says that she was an air remnant that he found nearly 70 years ago. She was born to a mortal father who kept her locked away in attempts to keep her safe. The townspeople found out, and Pen rescued her before they could kill her, but her parents were murdered. He explains that all remnants are linked in a way and tells her to close her eyes and sense their bond in his emotions. They arrive in Caldera within Pen's kingdom of Deved, and Pen brings Rhea to meet his sister, Queen Venora, who is old and cold towards her. Pen tells the court that Rhea is the air remnant. Then he brings Rhea to his chambers and explains that Caldera is built within a volcanic crater and was once the fire court. The water court remains in Helios, but the other two were destroyed after the cull. Ethnesian used to be related to Soren through marriage, but he was banished from his court and fled to the Southlands to create his Red Army. Ethnesian is jealous of Soren for possessing magic and has discovered dark ways of stealing Fey magic for himself. Rhea panics because his men saw her on the bridge and will continue to come after her, but Pen assures her that she's safe because the city is warded by his power that's distilled into petrified lava that's naturally imbued with energy. Rhea attends dinner with Venora and her court and learns that Uther is married and his wife is expecting their first child. The next day, Pen is gone and Rhea's new ladies' maids, Kita and Tegan, tell her to stay within the tower where it's safe, but she follows the bond and finds Pen sparring outside of the castle grounds. She also sees Farley has made it back and his broken leg is healing well. Rhea, Jack, and Farley go to the archery targets, and Jack tells Rhea that she's so good at archery because she's been subconsciously using her wind magic to make the arrows hit their targets. Jack and Farley also explain that fire is the most volatile element, so it's harder for Pen to control it. The day the Reavers attacked, it took 3 barrels of ice water to cool him down, and he lost control because he didn't know if she was safe. Pen interrupts and yells at Rhea for leaving the tower and tells her to go back home. She tells him that she's grateful for his protection, but assures him that she's not Enid and she needs some sort of purpose here. Pen agrees to teach her more about her powers and starts with teaching her how to shield her emotions. Pen sends some of his firepower down their bond and explains that the remnants can fuel and feed off of each other's power, and some are more compatible than others. Fire and air naturally work well together, while fire and water are naturally opposites, so it would be incredibly hard for Pen to tap into Soren's power, and the same is true for air and earth. Rhea refers to this magic sharing as merging, and Pen corrects her and says it's called channeling, whereas merging is something different and more intimate. Before the cull, merging with another Fae was like an unbreakable mating bond of the soul, unifying the two magics, and it was rare even back then. Rhea opens the gates of her power, then she passes out. When she wakes up, Pen apologizes for pushing her too hard, and Rhea asks what happened to Enid. Pen says that she was traumatized after her parents' murder, and her magic would leak out in cracks that became unstable. Pen tried to fix the cracks within her, but it cost her her life, and Soren, who was also in love with her, blames him for Enid's death. Rhea remains in bed for 3 days, and Kita tells her that Firemiss is coming up, which is a celebration of the equinox where the wards are recharged around the city. Rhea reviews the book Soren gave her and sees that beyond the water and fire court, the Sky Court, aka the Court of Clouds, was located in Tyrannus, but fell during the cull, and the queen and all of her heirs were killed in battle. Kita tells Rhea that she knows a dressmaker in the city that can make her something for Firemiss, so the two of them and Tegan head to the shop, and Rhea sees that this dressmaker is Karis, Uther's pregnant wife. Karis and Rhea become fast friends, and Rhea visits her daily while Karis continues to tease her about her clear and obvious attraction to Pen. Karis says Pen is a great leader and says that he personally met with all of the widows of the men from the Reavers attack and attended all of their funerals. While Rhea is headed home from Karis's, she is kidnapped and thrown in the back of a wagon. They reach a security checkpoint outside of the city gates, and she hears Gower's voice, who is the Ember Guild commander who Penn left to look after her. He tells the guards he's working on official business for Prince Pendafire, and Rhea pounds on the walls and screams for help. When the guards go to investigate, Gower kills them and then tells Rhea that Ethnician is offering immortality to whoever brings Rhea to him, and at this point she realizes that he's terminally ill and dying. Rhea unleashes her wind and wakes up to see the wagon is destroyed, and Gower is gravely injured by a piece of shrapnel. He's still alive, so Rhea kills him to end his suffering. She isn't sure who she can trust at this point and is worried she'll be punished for the death of an Ember Guild member, so she runs away into Deved's woods. After about 2 days, Penn finds Rhea and explains that he felt her blast of power mixed with her fear, and then he found the broken wagon and bodies and started piecing things together, and he was worried about her and hasn't stopped searching for her since. He apologizes for Gower and says that his men are heavily vetted and he didn't account for enemies within the city walls. Rhea says that she isn't going back to Caldera, and Penn says that he wants her there with him, and then he holds her while she cries, and they finally kiss at this point. They're interrupted by sounds of a nearby colony of ice giants, and they ride back to Caldera. Penn and Rhea travel to a nearby portal, and it's nearly invisible, but Rhea feels magic surrounding it. For the first time, she opens up and tells Penn about her past, and says that the day she fled her home, hundreds of soldiers arrived in her village and burned it down, killing everyone, including her mentor Eli. The portal they're at is dormant and must be activated by Fey blood. They enter and end up at the top of Caldera, looking down on the city. Penn tells Rhea that he and Vonora are not blood relatives. She's the daughter of the last Fire Remnant. After the war began and the 2 elemental courts were destroyed, Reavers and Frostlanders joined the mortal armies, and the Fire Court barely survived. During this time, King Vorath, the last Fire Remnant, sealed the borders and died by expending too much magic trying to keep the wards up. Penn was born on that same day and became the next Fire Remnant, then was taken to the Queen as a great honor, and his parents were rewarded. The Queen raised him as her own, and Vonora resented him for this. Since Penn has the same powers as Vorath, many people want him to rule, but he thinks that Vonora is a good leader, and not being king allows Penn to travel outside of the borders to form alliances and complete jobs that need to be done. Even though he's not friends with Soren, their kingdoms have been allies for decades because of Penn's mission. Rhea feels claustrophobic when they take a lift within a mine shaft, and Penn explains that she'll always feel a little trapped when she can't see the open sky because of the nature of her magic. While Rhea is at Karis's, she goes into labor, and Farley leaves to get the midwife, but the baby is coming too quickly, and Rhea has to deliver him herself. Penn, Uther, Farley, and the midwife arrive after the baby is already delivered, and Penn says that he felt her distress through the bond and came down from the mountains with Uther. Rhea feels her stress and panic come rushing in after the delivery, and Penn takes her away to avoid an outburst of her power. He explains that high emotions can lead to power surges, and she needs to learn to calm her emotions in order to calm her power. Rhea fights a battle in her mind and is able to seal her powers shut. In the coming days, Rhea continues to practice controlling her power, but Penn seems to be avoiding her. From Soren's book, she learns that Wind Weavers should practice breath work, avoid confined spaces, and be wary of mood swings. One night after Karis's, Penn walks Rhea home and she confronts him for avoiding her after their kiss, and he says that the last time he cared for someone, it ended badly, and he won't allow himself to go through it again. Rhea says they can just forget anything that happened between them and then storms off. Fire Mist arrives and Penn makes a speech as he recharges the wards, and the ceremony comes to a close. The ball starts and Rhea is disappointed to learn that Penn won't be joining. General Yale of Deved's armies asks her to dance, and she learns that Yale is annoyed with Penn after he questioned and interviewed everyone in the army for potential threats to learn who might try to earn Ethnician's reward of immortality. Yale says it's only a matter of time before someone succeeds in Ethnician's mission, and says Penn's love for her makes him weak and puts his kingdom at risk, and urges her to put a stop to it. Rhea runs off and finds Penn at the top of the mountain and questions him about what Yale told her. They start to argue again because Rhea misunderstands his emotions, but Penn says being around her makes him lose control and it's better if she hates him than loves him so he can keep her and his kingdom safe. They kiss and have an intimate moment, but Soren shows up and interrupts. He says that his scouts discovered multiple clearings full of dead Deved soldiers stripped of their uniforms. Reavers have allied with Ethnesian and have been secretly killing soldiers, stealing their uniforms, and passing themselves off as Deved soldiers. With Ethnesian's power, he'd be able to breach the wards of Caldera and sack the only safe place in Deved. Penn and Soren guess that he'll attack by morning, while Penn is at his weakest, and the city is most vulnerable. Then they feel the city shake as the wards are attacked by the Reavers and Ethnesian's army. Soren, Penn, and Rhea run through the city and find the rest of the Ember Guild to give them orders. Penn tries to send Rhea away with Farley, but she and Soren both agree that her magic is needed in the fight. Rhea and Farley go to Karis's, but she refuses to leave because Uther told her to stay until he got back. People are running for shelter through the streets, and Kita comes to Karis's for shelter, but is stabbed through the heart before she makes it inside. Rhea shoots the man backward with her wind, but Kita is already dead. Karis finally agrees to leave, and Farley takes her to the keep, while Rhea goes out to help the others. Rhea finds Soren drowning people with his power, and he says that she could suffocate them if she practiced more. Rhea is afraid to use her power because she can't control it, but Soren tells her that her magic is different from Penn's because he consumes magic in extremes, while Rhea's magic flows naturally like his does. Uther arrives looking for Karis, and Rhea sends him towards the palace keep. The fighting seems to be dying down when ice giants breach the city. Penn arrives and says they're attacking the palace, but assures her that Karis and Farley are safe in a root cellar, but Rhea panics because she just sent Uther there. Suddenly, towers fall and hit the bridge, covering it with rock and burying Uther. The rest of the warriors ready to attack the ice giants, and Soren and Penn send magic shooting towards them. Penn's magic flickers out, so Rhea releases her power and joins them, shooting lightning at the ice giants and electrocuting them. Rhea feels herself weakening, and when she stops her magic, Soren looks at her amazed and gives her a small amount of his power to keep her from burning out. Rhea wakes up in a hospital and finds that most of the city survived, but Uther died on the bridge. Penn says that Venora was also killed when the towers came down, making him the king of Deved. So that is where book 1 ends. Again, next book comes out on April 28th. And as always, if you have any recommendations for books you would like me to summarize in the future, please just leave a comment below.